Hi, and welcome to episode 16 of the Dittmer Knittery podcast. I'm Bev, and I'm glad you've joined me here today. Whether you're a returning subscriber or a new viewer, I'm glad to have you. I hope you'll leave your comments and questions down below. And also down below, you can check for links to how to contact me and other information. If I mention anything throughout the podcast that needs a link, that's where you'll find it, is down below. Thank you for your kind comments on my latest videos. I really appreciate it. I really do. Pamela of Pamela's Crochet and Knit Corner came to my channel and made a comment, and I realized I had missed some of her recent videos, so I went over and watched, tried to catch up because I do enjoy all of her videos. Pamela is always composed. Her videos are informative and entertaining. She has a great sense of humor and a very helpful staff. If you haven't watched, you need to go on over there and see what I'm talking about. And she recently said on one of the podcasts that I watched, she said something like, "I'm not a professional. I just do this for fun." And I really liked how she said that. Thank you, Pamela. Well said. That's how I feel too. I'm going to start today with some works in progress that I have. The first work in progress I have is the Maker's Bag, a pattern by Kim Richard. This pattern is available on Ravelry, and if I remember right, what happened is Kim was showing her bag that she made, a cotton project bag, and I think she said, this was during a live, and I think she said, "I wonder what this would look like felted." And I said, well, I will test crochet it and felt it. That's how I remember it happened. But anyway, I've ended up making Kim Richards' maker bag, Affordably Crafty. If I didn't say that before, the maker's name is Kim Richard. You'll find her as Affordably Crafty on YouTube, on Ravelry, on Ribbler. And like I said, this is a pattern that she made. I am looking down at my notes. Thanks for your patience. When I agreed to do this, I knew that I probably would make it bigger than what Kim called for in the original pattern because I was going to felt it. So one of the delays was I not only went up 2 hook sizes, I increased the number of rows that make the bottom of the bag, which then it was really big. It was obvious it was going to be too big. And I've talked about that before, making things that are too big and then finding them difficult to felt. It is large. It did turn out large, and it might be a challenge to felt, but I'm still glad I did it because I want to learn more about felting crochet. What I learned recently about felting crochet, and more about that in a few moments, was that crochet felts and shrinks proportionally. That is, if you start out with a square piece, no matter how much it shrinks, it should turn out to be a somewhat square piece in the end. That it shrinks as much this way as it shrinks this way. And I thought that was so of crochet. I've tried it a couple of times a long time ago, but I have done so much felting with knitting, which does not felt proportionally. So in knitting, the piece is going to shrink much more this way than it does this way. So even though I thought I knew that the crochet would felt more proportionally, I had to do it to find out. So like I said, I will talk about more of that in a minute, but I had to do it to figure it out. And so that's kind of what happened with this bag that I made from Kim's pattern. Is it did turn out bigger than I hoped, but I'm really glad I did it. And once I got started, once I got going, pardon me, it was so much fun. I just kept crocheting, and here it is. This, of course, is before felting. Of course, this is before felting. This is the bag crocheted, and I knitted the drawstrings, and I'll show you that more up close in a moment, but I want you to get an idea of how big this is. And of course, like I said, it is not felted, it will shrink. But it's going to be a bit of a challenge to felt. Let me show you a little bit more up close of the drawstring and how it feeds through the bag itself. I did some, let me back up just a minute. I did the finishing of the bag, these final rows, and the drawstring somewhat different than Kim's pattern. I think I did everything else the same, but like I said, I did go up 2 hook sizes, but I didn't make the bag any bigger, any more stitches or rounds than what her pattern called for. I don't think. Maybe a round or 2, but not much difference there. So, but I did make the drawstrings, I knitted them, and then I fed them in and out of this crochet mesh row that I had made as part of the bag. 2 drawstrings, so you'll be able to pull it shut. And then I am going to hot water felt it. This should work. It's been my experience with felting that this is a good way to apply a strap or a drawstring like this, is to felt it with the string in the bag. That helps felt the string or strap itself, and it also helps felt these openings where the string or strap goes in and out of the bag. Now, if I start felting it and I see that there's a problem with this, it's going to take a long time for this to felt thoroughly. So if I should be able to see if there is any problem when I begin felting. If I have to, I can take the drawstrings out and felt them separately, and this crochet mesh will probably felt open so I can then reinsert the drawstrings. So I don't have a lot of concerns about that. I am just really interested in seeing what's going to happen during the felting, and of course, best of all, after this thing is felted. The first thing that will happen when I put it in the water is it will get much larger and very heavy. It will become a little bit difficult to handle. We'll see how that goes. I probably won't take any video of myself doing that. It might look a little bit like me wrestling an octopus and losing. Maybe I'll take some pictures along the way, but I will definitely show it to you when it's done. I mentioned a moment ago that I learned some things about felting crochet. Looking at my notes. And that's what I have to show you next. I showed you this project unfelted on 2 different podcasts. One on February 25th called A Pod Scrap, and then also on episode 13. And I mentioned where I get the chart and provide the links there. If you don't find them, let me know and I'll provide the links again. Anyway, I showed you this project, a Mosaic Tree project that I was working on, a bag. I crocheted it and I felted it. Now it did shrink quite a bit, but I think it is beautiful. I am very happy with how this felted project came out. I was very happy with how it felted while I was working with it. I probably mentioned the yarns, which are, would be Patons Classic Wool and Fisherman Wool are the yarns that I used here. And if you saw it before, you know it has shrunk quite a bit, but it hasn't lost any of its loveliness or charm. And I made a strap for it. So I couldn't decide if the strap needed to be short or long. So I made a rather long strap and I will felt this strap and attach it and see whether I like it long or short. And if you have any input about whether you think I should make a short strap or a long strap for this beautiful bag, let me know what you think. I think it needs a crossbody strap, and that's the length that I've made. I am going to, this is crocheted, this strap that I made. This is, I don't remember how many I chained. Foundation single crochet, and then I worked in the back loop all the way back up, and I don't remember how many stitches. I think I went till I ran out of this lighter green yarn and that's how I decided how long to make the strap, as long as I could, to be able to include all the colors from the bag. So I will felt this. Now the straps themselves like this don't seem to shrink nearly as much as the bag overall, so I can anticipate, I believe we will see if my predictions hold true, I can anticipate that this will not shrink very much and that it will remain a nice long strap for this bag. I have one finished object that I'm not going to show until the customer has it, and that is the felted bag that I showed on episode 15, the bag that I was felting on episode 15. I have completed it, and the recipient, the customer, will be receiving it in however long it takes the postal service to get as far away as she is. And other than that commission, that bag that I made, I still haven't purchased any yarn this year. And like I said when I first mentioned that I planned not to buy any yarn this year. I didn't know if I would be able to sustain that, but I've made it 3.5 months. So I think that's pretty good, and I intend to keep that up because I do have an awful lot of yarn, as I hope one day you'll see when I get to take you into my yarn room, into my knittery, and show you my stash. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the afghan on my couch. Now, I told you last time that I would talk about it, and that's what I'm going to do. I made this afghan in the late 80s or early 90s. This is the pattern book. You'll notice it's a photocopy of the pattern book. And this is what I worked from. I can see my notes inside of it. And it says 1988. So I think I'm close saying late 80s, early 90s, I made this Afghan stitch pineapple. And I made it as a gift for my mother. She didn't really like receiving gifts. It was hard to surprise her or really please her with something. And when I gave this to her, she was both surprised and pleased. She said that she knew that I had made her an afghan, and that she anticipated she would be disappointed because she could make herself an afghan. Why would I make her something that she could make herself? But when she received this, she was very pleased. She had never seen afghan stitch. She did not know how to do counted cross stitch embroidery. So it was so nice to have made something and then give it to her and have her be so pleased about it. And she cherished it. She cherished it very, very much. Now, when I made this, I followed the pattern and I did the cross stitch, the counted cross stitch pineapples in pineapple colors, which at that time was the color of the decor in my mother's living room. Now, by the time I finished this, because it took me, I know over a year to complete it. By the time I'd finished it, she had changed her decor to this blue color. So anyway, I knew when I started it, it was going to take a long time based on how long it took me to make the first square. But I didn't know when I finished it and gave it to her that she had changed the color of her decor. She may have even moved because it would have been after my father passed away, and she did move a couple of years after he passed away and get some new furniture, so that's probably what had happened, and I just hadn't seen the new furniture yet. So although she treasured it, it didn't match her living room. So she and my aunt, the same aunt that I've mentioned before on my podcast, and they asked me before they did it, which was so sweet. They took out all the pineapple color stitching, which, you know, the green would have stayed. They didn't take out the green part, but they took out all the pineapple colored stitching and made blue pineapples so that it matched her new couch and she could have it in her living room. And like I said, she had never done counted cross stitch embroidery. And although it's simple, she had never done it. And the idea of purposely going in the hole where the stitch would go in and out and match this grid, you know, she wanted it to be like the linen fabric where you very carefully did not pierce the fabric when, you know, the counted cross stitch has a hole where you're supposed to purposely pierce the fabric. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. I've mentioned that my mom taught me to crochet. This is probably the most advanced item she ever saw me make. She taught me to crochet in 1989, and she passed away in 1992. So she didn't get to see what a gift she gave me by teaching me to crochet. And I'll go off on a tangent and tell you a little story about what my mother said about teaching me to crochet. I was an adult. I was 29 years old. And so it probably was 1987. Anyway, so if my mother taught me to crochet in 1987, she still passed away in 1992. Sorry if I get my dates mixed up a little bit. I'm sure you understand. But my mother said, after I learned to crochet and I had crocheted a few things and maybe I was beginning to work on an afghan, which I made my first afghan out of this pamphlet. I'll show you, I'll back up and show you that in a second. She said that while she was teaching me, that she thought I was never going to get it. And she would go to bed in the evening and just hope that when I woke up in the morning, I would forget about wanting to learn to crochet and leave her alone and not ask her to show me again, because it just seemed like I wasn't getting it. But of course, she told me this story long after I'd gotten it, and it was funny to hear her tell it. And we had quite a laugh over that at some point she thought I was never going to get it. But apparently I persisted to the point of making her wish that I would forget all about it. So that's a funny little tangent. I've mentioned my aunt. After my mother passed away, my aunt continued to teach me knit and crochet. She passed away in 2011 or 2012. And I think of both of them whenever I knit or crochet. I think of them all the time. And for some reason recently, it just comes to me more and more that I wouldn't be making any of these stitches, I wouldn't be making any of these projects if it hadn't been for those wonderful hours that I spent with my mom and my aunt trying to figure out how to crochet. And I'm still have so much to learn. As I mentioned on one of my very early podcasts, I'm just so impressed by what I see crochet artists doing now, and I am so anxious to learn more, to the point that sometimes I can't decide what it is I want, what crochet technique, what crochet stitch it might be that I would like to try next. Here is a little bit better of a view of the afghan, the cross stitch, and the border. All those puff stitches, bobble stitches, I can't remember what they were called, and this braid around the whole thing. Thought you might like to see a more close-up view of it. And some of the squares then I left unembroidered because it already was so much work. I was glad to have it finished, and I'm very glad to have it now as another memory of my mom. I said I would show the page in the pamphlet of the first afghan I ever made. So it was this light and lacy pineapple. Very simple, classic, and I made it in, I can see down here I've written the yarn color Windsor Blue, and it was a dark teal blue. Crystal of Bag O' Day started a tag for 10 yarn questions, and Priscilla of Distinctive Crochet and Kim, the Crafty Nomad, tagged me to answer those questions. So here goes. I'm going to answer those questions for you. The first question is, what is your favorite color of yarn? Green. While some of my other answers may change, that one's not going to change. Green. All different kinds of greens. And I'm going to answer questions 2 through 5 based on the yarn I'm loving best that I'm using right now. And then I'm going to show you some things before I move on to the rest of the questions. Question 2. What is your favorite weight of yarn? Fingering. What is your favorite style of yarn? I like a plain smooth yarn. I don't like any novelty yarns, and I like a 2 or 3 ply slight twist. Not a tight twist, but definitely a twist. What is your favorite fiber of yarn? Wool. What is your favorite, this is question 5. What is your favorite brand that you can get easily within your country? That is Knit Picks Palette Yarn, and I'm saying that because of how I answered the questions above and what I said about I'm going to talk about what I'm using right now that I'm loving the very most of all the different things I'm using and loving. This is what I'm loving the very most that I'm using right now, and that is Knit Picks Palette Yarn. Now I say I like it because of the way I answered the questions above. What is my favorite color of yarn? Green. So here are just a few of the greens that I can get from palette yarn. And this is a 50-gram ball, and I think they are $3.59. Sometimes they'll go on sale for $2.99, but I believe they retail for $3.59. And like I said, this is just a sample of the different greens I can get. And let's see, what is your favorite weight of yarn? Fingering. This is a fingering weight yarn. It is a 2-ply, it's lightly spun, and it is wool. It is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. I wanted to show you just a little bit of it here about how I said it's a 2-ply. You can see I've plied that sample right there. A little, it's kind of hard for you to see. I thought maybe the darker color, you can see it there. The reason that I like it so much right now is that I can hold 2 strands of this yarn together, 2 different colors, 2 strands of different colors, hold those together to create blends. And because it's fingering weight and it's 2 strands, then it doesn't become too heavy and dense. And while the same technique works with worsted weight yarn, that you can hold 2 different colors together and create beautiful blends, sometimes that fabric is more dense than what I would like to create. So being able to use 2 strands of fingering weight yarn that's 100% wool and that then I can felt allows me to do some blends. And I'm going to show you a couple of samples of a couple of examples of unfelted bags where I have used this technique with palette yarn, where I have held 2 colors together to create blends. And I may have shown these bags before because they are ready to be hot water felted, and they have been waiting for that for a little while now. And I do hope to get to them very soon. And maybe that I say that'll make me do it. But this is a bag knit holding 2 strands of palette yarn together to create these color changes and color blends. And I have another one as well that's much the same technique but different colors, just to show you how versatile this technique is and how beautiful it can be. And when I create a bag like this, after I hot water felt it, after I shrink it and it's all felted and dry, I may or may not feel as though it needs embellishment. It may, because of the beautiful colors, may need only the most sparing embellishment or none at all. And almost all my bags get a button, and of course they have a strap. This one has a closure that has a buttonhole, so a buttonhole will go on there. And this one has a different kind of closure, a string closure, but again, a strap and a closure where I can sew a button on there, and this will loop around the button and close the bag. I just thought answering those questions about my favorite kind of yarn and why was a really good opportunity to show you what I do with the yarn that I am loving so much right now. And of course, I hope to have more products made from this same yarn to show you soon, because it's working so well for me. They, of course, don't sponsor me. I'm sure they don't know anything about me, but it's really been a great thing for me to begin to use it and make these blends. Like I said, with the fingering weight yarn, I've done the blends before with the worsted weight yarn, but moving to the fingering weight yarn has allowed me to make smaller, more lightweight, more artistic products. And that is the direction that I'm trying to go. Hopefully more artistic. I'm on question 6. What is your favorite brand that isn't easy to get within your country? This has not been a concern for me. The domestic yarns I can get in the variety of colors so far has been what I needed. And I need a workhorse yarn. Like, these are commercial yarns. The Knit Picks palette is readily available to me, as is other worsted weight yarns such as Fisherman wool and Patons classic wool would be the worsteds if I were to choose them. So they're readily available to me. Luckily, the products that I use, I don't have to worry about trying to seek them from somewhere outside my country. Question 7, favorite yarn store online and favorite brick and mortar yarn store. Favorite yarn store online right now would have to be Knit Picks for the palette yarn. For if I were to go to a brick and mortar store, it would be Joann. And the Joann that I have closest to me, it's about 30 miles away. They stock a good variety of yarn. Now, they don't have any fingering weight wool yarn, but they usually do have the Patons classic wool. And sometimes they'll even have the Patons roving wool, both of which felt well, but like I said, are not my favorites at the moment because I'm enjoying the fingering weight so much. Question 8. Oh, and Joann is also good for buying online. If I can't find the specific color of Patons that I need, I can get it. If I can't find it in the store, I can get it online. Now, again, I haven't bought any yarn this year other than 3 or 4 skeins, I think it was 3, for the commission bag that I made. Question 8, do you keep scrap yarn? If so, what do you do with it? Yes, I keep it. But sometimes what I find is it's just all tangled, not usable, not what I wanted, and so I'll save it maybe even for years and then throw it away. So I have a relatively new collection of scrap yarn because apparently I got rid of some, and I do keep my ends of balls and skeins. Like, if there's a significant amount of yarn left, I don't consider that a scrap. If there's more than half of the ball, more than a quarter of the original package of the yarn left, I will probably keep it. And I do sometimes buy and use the same types of yarn. So if I have part of one left, I might be able to buy something, even if it's not the same dye lot, I can buy the same color and make it work perfectly fine for what I do. Question number 9. What is your favorite thing to crochet or knit? Bags. I'm a bag maker. That's what I enjoy. I can and do make other things, but I enjoy most of all, my favorite thing to knit or crochet is bags. Question 10. If you could crochet or knit one last thing for the rest of your life, what would it be and what yarn would you use? I would make, it surprised me that I didn't have to think very hard or long about this. I would make another bag based on a bag that I made before. Now, I'm sure I couldn't duplicate it, but I could make something like what I made before. And I'll do my best to insert a picture for you. I'll try to have a photo of it here for you. It was one of the first bags that I designed and made. It's called Knit Purl, and it was knit with Fisherman wool, holding 2 strands of Fisherman wool together. It was quite a large bag. And then I embroidered on it in wool yarn the words Knit Purl. I think it was knit, and there was a comma, purl. I embroidered that in cross stitch, and then on the other side of the bag, I embroidered some like puffy balls of yarn and a couple of knitting needles that I actually just embroidered on this bag. And Like I said, it was one of the first ones that I designed and made on my own, and I loved it so much, and I was so pleased with how it turned out, even though it was imperfect. I loved it so much, and I sold it for a good price, and I miss it. And it made me think, when I realized that was the answer to the question, it made me think I should get started and go ahead and make another one like that. So I hope I will. I hope that within the next few projects, I get that yarn in front of me. I actually have enough yarn, Fisherman wool, the colors and kinds of yarns I would like to use. I have enough yarn to do that. And even if I don't embroider on it, if I hot water felt it and then embellish it some other way, I still would like to make something that's a project bag. That's obviously a knit and or crochet project bag. And like I said, I really liked the look of my knit purl bag, and I hope that I'm pretty sure I can find a photograph and put it in here for you. That's the end of the questions. I'm sure I've gone on for quite some time now, and I want to tag anyone who's watching to answer these questions. You don't have to be specifically tagged. You don't have to wait for somebody to say your name. I'll post these questions in my description box. Please feel free to copy and paste them and answer them as you choose, in order, not in order. Mix it all up like I did and include some finished objects or works in progress or some yarns that are very special to you. I will mention a few names that I would like to tag. I feel like that this tag has been going around for a while. It's a popular tag and a lot of people have done it. So even the names I mentioned here may already have been tagged and already have done it, but I'm going to mention a few names. And like I said, please, if you're watching this, feel tagged and go ahead, answer these questions. And if you don't have a channel, gosh, feel free to copy and paste and answer the questions below in a comment to me. If you want me to share them, I'll do that. You know, I would love it for you to make a comment and to answer those questions for me. So here's who I'm going to tag. Elma Clark. Her podcast is Hooks Up, Needles Ready, Yarn. Elma Clark. I tag Ramona Lee of the let me try her again. I tag Ramona Lee of the But I'm Knitting podcast. I tag Marieanne, the Crochetty Clogger. And I tag Gina of the Knitting Turnpike. And finally, I'm going to tag Caleb and Justin of the Bearded Purl. Okay, I think I'm going to be able to end it for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Please do comment, ask questions, come back and watch again soon. I hope you liked what you see today. Be here and now. See things as they are. Peace, love, and I will add this. Please take care of each other. I'll see you soon.